ANOVA tests were completed to analyze the results of the reaction time, working memory, and executive functions. A t-test was used to analyze the learning time. It can be seen from the data that there was no significant difference in data between the control and drug conditions for any of the cognitive tests. In one case, there was a significant difference between the two variants in the test. The subjects on average reacted slower during the go-no-go test than the go test. There was no significant difference in percent correct between the 2 and 3 back conditions of the working memory test or the percent correct and reaction time for the congruent and non-congruent data of the executive decision. A placebo may have been given based on a lack of statistical significance. No differences were observed between control and drug conditions, but differences should have been observed between cognitive tests. In the go-no-go test, there is a trade-off between reaction time and error rate. Rather than getting a stimulus wrong, the subject opts to spend longer time getting it right, or vice versa. In the Stroop test, no differences may have been observed because subjects may have learned how to approach the task during trials. They may have trained their executive memory to look at the color of the word rather than the word itself. Also, the subjects included 2 females and 1 male. In a study completed by Block, it was found that 14-year-old boys were more impulsive, which would imply that they had a lower reaction rate, but possibly an increased error rate. Since there were more females tested, it could have balanced the results out. When the working memory is full, as seen in the NBAC test, it must lose a piece of information from the working memory in order to function. The study also looked at a 2 and 3 back test using simple images which would not occupy much space in the working memory, and thus it would be less likely to forget. If the study was to be completed using a 6 or 7 back test, there might be differences observed in the NBAC test. There were several confounding effects surrounding this experiment, such as memory aids such as talking in order to remember, environment surrounding the testers if people were talking, for example. The distance from the monitor would increase the reaction rate by having to look at the screen and then looking at the keyboard, using a mouse pad, or having a lack of knowledge of the keyboard in the Stroop test because you wouldn't know where the keys were. The time since drug administration, drug tolerance to caffeine or nicotine, energy levels between days, and the stress level. Possible solutions or improvements for further studies include getting rid of the confounding effects and having a more controlled environment, increasing the number of trials and subjects, separating sessions to reduce fatigue between tests, and ensuring no prior exposure to the drug. Following statistical analysis of the results, there was no evidence to conclude that the cognitive abilities of the subjects were impaired or enhanced by the action of pharmacological agents like caffeine or diphenhydramine. This implies that no pharmacological compound was administered to test subjects.